Alright, hello, citizens of the Nigelverse. It's Nigel here once again, and this is going to be another movie review. Well, say his name 3 times and he appears, but I am not talking about Joe Hendry, I am talking about Beetlejuice. It's time to review Beetlejuice as we wrap up our Halloween movies for the October Halloween season. And of course, as always, I'm not a professional movie reviewer or analyst or anything like that. Just a man who enjoys a good time. And I must say, I had a pretty decent time with this movie. It's been ages since I've seen this movie. I don't think I've seen this movie at least since I was a kid. I honestly couldn't tell you the last time I saw this movie, but does it hold up after so many years? Let's find out. Of course, if you've seen these reviews of mine before, you kind of know how this works. But if you haven't, I'm gonna be talking about what I liked, disliked about the movie, as well as giving a little bit, a little bit of a plot summary. It's late. You might see me flub once or twice or 20 times, but nevertheless, without further ado, let's get right into it. It's with the plot summary starting out. So we start out in Winter River, Connecticut. And we see at Adam and Barbara Maitland and on vacation, and they're on vacation in their country home, and they're gonna spend their vacation indoors at home, which Emily I've done once or twice, like just having a vacation, just chilling in your house, not really wanting to go anywhere, or kind of being a hermit for her a little bit. That's sometimes. Sometimes that's just how you feel sometimes. But in the meantime, they are being pestered by a real estate agent, Jane Butterfield, which apparently is a family member as well. Which, if the movie did bring that up, I totally missed it. I totally must have completely went over my head, I will admit, but nevertheless, as she tries to convince them to sell the house, but they are, of course, having none of it. Which, you'd be surprised how often that happens in real life. If actually, he comes to think of it, that hasn't happened to me or my family personally. We've gotten letters to sell our home and everything, but to constantly pester them, it's an ongoing issue with this lady. And the movie acknowledges that it's an ongoing issue because they try their best to hide from her and everything. Yeah, so they are not selling their house, but they do go out to the store, or Adam heads to the store real quick to get some tools so he can continue to work on his scale model of the town out in the attic. It's kind of a hobby of his, which we all have hobbies. We all need hobbies, So they go to the hardware store, or they get what they need to get, but unfortunately, calamity strikes as on their drive home. They try to swerve her so they don't hit a dog that just wandered out in the middle of the street, and they accidentally plunge off the bridge and they drown in the river. And I guess the moral of the movie is be a cat person. And no disrespect to the dogs or my dog lovers out there. I love dogs as well. I personally don't have one or a cat, or any type of pet, but shout out to all my dog lovers out there. This is just a joke. But nevertheless, they head back home soaking wet, but they are unsure of how they arrived here, or how they got back home. And it's also to the point where Barbara's hand accidentally goes into the fire. They got the fireplace. It goes to the fire, but she isn't burning anything. And it's not quite. It's somehow not quite as hokey as when they did in Superman 2. But so oh so oh oh Barbara's hand isn't burning in the fire. Adam tries to leave the house to kind of clear his head to retrace the steps as to how they got home. But as he ends up in like a desert like area, which is infested with very large sandworms. I wonder if they have any relation to the Sarlaccs. But as as he is gone for 2 hours, doesn't realize that it's 2 hours. It only feels like a few seconds for him, and then they find a book called the Handbook for the Recently Deceased, which pretty much that and them seeing that they don't have any reflections in the mirror, or they pretty much figure out that they're dead. They're essentially they're dead pretty much. So they figure out that they died. They drowned when their car fell off the bridge, and so they are officially dead. They're officially ghosts. Either they're vampires, because vampires don't have reflection either. Or if I'm getting my vampire lore correct, please let me know if I am in the comments. But eventually their house is sold off, and I guess Jane wasted no time selling off the house. He sells it to a New York real estate developer, Charles Eates, and his wife Delia, as well as their teenage goth daughter Lydia, and they pretty much tear the whole thing down and remodel remodel the house. They like totally overhaul it, and Barbara and Adam, who are still inhabiting the house, they haven't left yet. That's part of the condition of being dead, is that they essentially roam the house. But they are not too happy about that. Not too happy about how all the changes made to the house. Of course, Delia is very big into art. So the house kind of reflects that. She like spray paints the walls and everything, and they have an interior designer, Otho, with them, and who kind of hangs out with them and talk about all the remodels they're gonna make to the house. Thankfully, Delia didn't forget Kevin this time, and if you get that reference. But nevertheless, Barbara and Adam are trying to figure out what to do, because they really don't want these people in their house, and they try their best to read the handbook, but the handbook is of no help. They are having a whole lot of trouble interpreting essentially what the handbook means, because the handbook is very, very vague on a lot of things, and they end up seeing an ad on TV. It just pops up on their TV for the services of a bioexorcist. It's known as Beetlejuice, and this commercial is it's something. It's definitely something. We'll get to that more later on, but continuing to follow the handbook, which Adam is trying to very much decipher what the handbook means. They find themselves creating a door. They draw the door and everything, and thankfully the door does have a door hole. Not also they don't get stuck like Drake and Josh did in that one episode, but. They go through the door. The door, her once it's drawn, it automatically opens. So they head through, and they go to a waiting room with other distressed souls heading towards the afterlife, and they eventually make their way through. They meet up with their caseworker, her Juno. They see that their house has been totally redesigned, and then Juno pretty much breaks down to them that they have to stay in the house for 125 years before or moving on. So I'm guessing either into heaven or hell or purgatory. If purgatory exists in this universe. But they also ask Juno about Beetlejuice, the guy that they saw in the advertisement. It's also worth mentioning up until this point that they aren't able to correctly guess his name. They don't really know his name yet. And it's not spelled Beetlejuice like the way that it's spelled within the advertisements or the movie title. It's spelled completely different, which I guess where the confusion comes in. It's spelled it's actually supposed to be spelled Betelgeuse. So I wonder why they made the change over from it. And to what I was able to gather in the movie, they didn't really address the different spelling or anything like in the movie. So I'm guessing that they probably spelled it just to make it easier for the audience and everything. I am seeing on the wiki here that there is another article about a supergiant star in the constellation of Orion. So I wonder if that has anything to do with it. But nevertheless, Juno pretty much tells them Beetlejuice no good. Beetlejuice used to work for her, and pretty much went freelance and pretty much went crazy and everything as a bioexorcist, and reveals that Beetlejuice can only be summoned by saying his name 3 times. And she pretty much tells him not to summon Beetlejuice. I think you know where this is going. So, in the meantime, and admittedly, the wiki, as it normally does kind of go back and forth, and has things condensed in a certain order to where they make sense, but the movie kind of does go back and forth with things. So Adam and Barbara, they continue to try to scare off Charles and Delia. Lydia is the only one who can see them thus far, and pretty much how the movie explains it is that the living don't want to see the unusual, or the strange and unusual, I should say. But Lydia is strange and unusual, so she is able to see them. Sure, but has none of their attempts work. Some decent attempts, except for the part where they're invisible. So, Charles and Delia can't see them anyway. And they do try to scare them off at first, and then they really try to ramp it up after meeting up with Juno and everything. But Hutz eventually, with all the options exhausted, Adam and Barbara end up doing the one thing that they're not supposed to do, and that is summon Beetlejuice. And Beetlejuice, they meet up with him. They go into the model of the town. They dig up his grave, where it says "Here lies Beetlejuice." And Beetlejuice, who is very weird, very off-putting for Adam and Barbara, pretty much all over the place. So they decide, yeah, no, none of this. As they decide they're going to haunt these people and get them out themselves. And they decide to do it by during a dinner party that is hosted by Delia, which features, of course, Charles, host Delia herself, obviously, Lydia, Otho, who, like I said, is their interior designer, but is kind of also hangs out with them for the most part. But we also see Delia's art agent and wife and daughter, Adam and Barbara try to scare them off by possessing them all to do the calypso. But instead of scaring them off, everybody is like, everybody has the exact opposite. They loved that. They loved doing the calypso. They talk about how cool and freaky the experience is. If that happened in real life, probably wouldn't be my first reaction to that. My first reaction would be a huge WTF just happened, but you do you, I guess. But it does cause Charles and Delia to try to pretty much use the ghost host as amusement, essentially, and try to turn them into a sort of carnival act. But their guests are having none of it. They do leave after the experience, and they do try to chalk it up to having a hallucination, which everybody having the same exact hallucination, I don't think that's really how that works, but sure. Eventually, Charles and Delia and Otho pretty much force her Lydia to show them what's up in the attic. Adam and Barbara had been hiding in the attic this whole time and trying to make sure nobody goes up there. Lydia got the skeleton key from Jane, and that's the last we see of her in this movie, is her handing the skeleton key off to Lydia. So Lydia is able to unlock the door, and because she is able to see Adam and Barbara, she kind of talks to them. They develop their bond and everything, but they're forced to be brought up to the attic. Meanwhile, Adam and Barbara go into hiding. They hide the window, and that's when the Deeds is find the town model and pretty much try to use it. They try to sell it off, try to turn it into a business venture. That's kind of Charles's whole thing, is turning everything into a business venture. And Otho also finds the handbook. The handbook that Adam and Barbara received upon dying. Obviously, the handbook for the recently deceased. So I guess that is physical and tangible, and not just visible to the ghost. But as you're gonna see, as you're gonna see, that is a no-no. They weren't supposed to find that book. If they weren't supposed to find the book, why did you make it physical to the people that are alive? Why not just have it be invisible, just like the people who are dead? But maybe that type of technology didn't exist back in 1988. But Beetlejuice does hop out of the model. He turns to a giant snake, and he does scare the Deeds. He does what Adam and Barbara can't do. Can't seem to do. Who everybody's freaked out. But Barbara does say his name 3 times. So Beetlejuice's name being said 3 times does summon him, but it also sends him back to his home. Essentially, and then Juno brings Barbara and Adam back in, pretty much tells them, hey, you got to get these people out of here, pretty much chastises them for summoning Beetlejuice, who's getting them to find the book. So yeah, Barbara and Adam done effed up, but they gotta try to make it right. They essentially gotta get those people out of there. And Lydia, who is upset because she thinks it was Adam and Barbara who was the snake. In reality, obviously, it was Beetlejuice, who then feels betrayed and everything. Writes a suicide note. Yeah, she is very emo, very goth, but yeah, so that is something. But Lydia then sees Beetlejuice and pretty much comes to the conclusion that it was him, and she figures out it was him that scared them, and she almost summons them so that she can essentially die, go into the afterlife. But Adam and Barbara come back. They did morph their faces to scare them off, but obviously they put the kibosh on that in the meantime, so that Lydia doesn't accidentally summon Beetlejuice, but later on, Maxie Dean, who is kind of who is in a way Charles is his boss / friend, and I guess comes over to see the ghost, because at this point Charles and Delia have told everybody about the ghost, try to turn them into an attraction. And I should say that I think attraction, that was the word I was looking for earlier. But Adam and Barbara are having none of that. They are not showing up. They don't want to do the job. They don't feel like showing up. They pretty much pull a CM Punk. But Otho then uses the handbook, which he's also been deciphering, to essentially summon them. But he needs something from the physical world connected to the to summon them. So at least that part is kind of consistent with the Haunted Mansion movie that we reviewed a couple weeks ago. If you haven't already, go check out that review. He summons them, they morph into their wedding clothes, and then but they then start decomposing, and so something has gone awry. And apparently it's because Otho, who instead had performed an exorcism on them instead of just a summoning, and so he done hoofed, and and Adam and Barbara essentially being sent off to pretty much sent to a death for the dead. So pretty much Hutch they're dying again, and they're gonna be dead permanently. And Lydia, obviously being very upset by that and not wanting that to happen, and does summon Beetlejuice, but Beetlejuice agrees to help out on one condition, that he will save Adam and Barbara if Lydia agrees to marry him, which allows him to stay in the moral world. Well, Lydia, need I remind you, is a teenager. Yeah, that is something I'm not touching with a 20-foot pole. But nevertheless, she agrees. And she says his name 3 times, and he does come up. He scares her off. First, Maxine and his wife, he pretty much sends them into the shadow realm. He pretty much does like a carnival sort of thing, like the tester strike sort of thing, but they go sailing through the roof. That admittedly was pretty funny. We don't see them for the rest of the movie. He pretty much scares Otho by ripping off the suit that he has and giving him a new one, an arguably much better one. He's scared off, and Beetlejuice, who's about to marry Lydia, but Adam and Barbara stop him just in time, or at least attempt to. They do try to say his name multiple times, but because obviously that sends him back to where he came from once again. But Beetlejuice repeatedly he tries to stop them, even bolting Barbara's mouth shut with steel, and sending her back into the sand world, which they do explain in the movie. He is apparently Saturn, but Barbara comes in, hiding the worm into the back into their house, and that essentially he kills Beetlejuice, and Beetlejuice is sent down to the land of the dead. So Beetlejuice is essentially dead again. And so after that, the movie pretty much ends with Adam and Barbara, as well as Charles and Delia and Lydia, all living happily together and happily ever after. And because Lydia did well on her math test, as they possess her to be able to do the Calypso as well, which is how the movie ends off. And then Beetlejuice is in the waiting room, and he attempts to steal the number ticket, because there is a number ticket system in the waiting room, and he gets a shrunken head to end off the movie. So that is the plot summary for Beetlejuice, and yes, that kind of was all over the place, but this definitely was a kind of all over the place movie. So what do I like and what do I dislike about the movie? I guess starting with what I like, I think as protagonists, Adam and Barbara, you definitely feel for them, but the people that move in also aren't necessarily evil, and I think that are necessarily bad. They're very off-putting in ways, but you definitely kind of grow to tolerate them for the most part, and them living harmoniously, you can definitely kind of buy. So I think the protagonists do their part really well. You definitely do root for them, and they were pretty much dealt a bad hand and don't necessarily want things to change, but they pretty much learn to live with that change now that they're dead, and now that they've made this friendship with Lydia, and you can see how the bond is developed between Adam and Barbara and Lydia, where Adam and Barbara kind of become like parental figures to her. And of course, Beetlejuice, the in a way star of the show. The antics he gets up to are definitely all over the place, but also definitely a lot of fun on quite a bit of jokes. A lot of them not aged the best, and a lot of it is potty humor, which is how I wonder or how this movie managed to stay PG-13. You know, we get an F bomb in this movie, but Beetlejuice, it was some stuff, like I said, hey, kind of troubling, but he is kind of supposed to be the villain of this movie, so I guess it makes sense. But he is still pretty fun to watch. A lot of the antics he gets up to, which was kind of the style at the time. I kind of compare him. I don't know if this comparison is made often when it comes to the Beetlejuice character, but I kind of compare him to the Mask, as in a way where he gets into a lot of antics and does a lot of stuff in a way for his own amusement, but it is so fun to watch that you end up not really caring at the end of the day. Hey, so I think Beetlejuice does well a lot in that regard. Thankfully, the movie isn't too long. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's about an hour and a half, but it doesn't feel too long and it doesn't feel too short. It feels like it's paced relatively well for the most part. Yeah, the comedy is pretty fun. Is pretty funny for the most part. There are a lot of moments that will get a chuckle out of you throughout the movie. So yeah, there is that going for it, and the way they kind of go about how death and everything is kind of an interesting take on it. Like, I feel like death and like the afterlife and everything is either taken from like a kind of taken from like a in a way kind of serious approach, like going off into the afterlife and everything, or in the case of like this movie, it's taken in a more comedic way, like having a waiting room, having kind of a case agent and a counselor in a way. So I think that also works out for the movie as well, and yeah, pretty fun in that regards. What I didn't quite like about as much about this movie, I do think for a movie he called Beetlejuice, who's starring obviously Beetlejuice, who's not a whole lot of Beetlejuice. I wish we got a little bit more of him. He doesn't even really become like a major factor. We see him we see glimpses of him throughout the early parts of the movie, but he doesn't really majorly become a factor until around the halfway point, which is a little bit surprising. And I do feel like the movie. I do feel like Beetlejuice is intended to be the main villain, but I also feel like the movie kind of tries to have two or even multiple main villains in a way. Hey, they almost try to portray the Dietzes as kind of villainous which I don't. It's kind of weird. Or like, I wouldn't flat out call them villains per se, just more opportunistic and don't really have the best qualities sometimes. Which is all of us as human beings, and who am I to judge and everything. But I feel like the movie, he does kind of get confused and jumbled in that way, at times. And like I said, some stuff from this movie, some aspects of it, don't necessarily age the best. I do wish, and like I said, I do wish we got a little bit more Beetlejuice. Although I guess depending on how much you like the character or how much we got of him is either just enough or maybe even potentially too much. But yeah, I do wish we got to see a little bit more from him in terms of this movie and the dynamic, I guess, of like who's supposed to be the main villain of the movie, or perhaps it's a movie that doesn't necessarily have one. And or I guess, and for all intents and purposes, Beetlejuice is the main villain, but I feel like the movie did kind of go about it in a little bit of a weird way. But nevertheless, that is going to do it for this movie. Yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do me a favor. Like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends, and turn on post notifications so you know every time I upload a video so you can see as soon as it drops, and let me know in the comments below your thoughts on this movie, my review of the movie. If you like Beetlejuice, if you like my review of Beetlejuice, let me know. Thank you all so much for watching. I will see you guys later. Peace.